declared to the world as loud as I could, f***ing twat.
The Steve Show.
Okay, guys, you're not going to believe this, but after a 4-year hiatus, we are back with the Steve Show.
Wow.
Hello.
Wow.
I've got with me Captain Wow, a.k.a. Dan.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I can't stop it now. Hi.
And we've got Mr. Doddy from Summoned Games. So
I've not heard that many wows since Owen Wilson was on the screen.
Wow.
Or more of a Keanu Reeves whoa.
Kung Fu.
So just to give you guys a bit of an introduction, I've had Dan on the show before. If you are going to listen to our back catalogue of 3 other episodes, Dan on there.
Yeah. Just to be fair, essentially, we normally record Dungeons and Dragons playthrough on a Wednesday night, but Reg is a bit poorly, so we thought, well, let's record a pod. And what better excuse than to, because we've got Steve on, let's do another Steve show. And before we started, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I'm bringing these guys up from 4 years of up to date.
Well, you say that. No, this is my point. This is what I'm trying to make a point of. You said, yeah, well, this is from like 4 years ago. I'm not sure. I think it might be older than that, because when I look at the feed, it shows 27th of October 2016 as the last time we recorded a Steve show.
So,
however, it also says 27th of October for episode 2 and for episode 1. So I think that might just be when they're updated.
It was when we transferred over to NerdOD. So just to bring you guys up to speed, we got rid of g.e.e.k. That's gone. That's no more. That doesn't exist. Apart from YouTube, where it does exist and you can still see the logos. We transitioned, transformed, transcended into NerdOD, which is more of a network, more of a collaboration, more of a bringing people on for funsies. And then we started doing a show called NerdOD&D for Dungeons and Dragons, which I've doing incredibly a lot. I'm out of practice.
Incredibly a lot.
And Doddy's been our dungeon master. But yeah, I was just giving a bit of background on Dan. You already heard of him in the theme park episode that we did. He's our other co-founder of Nerd. I've only had like half a beer. This is insane. Our other co-founder of NerdOD. So he's joined us along the line, along for the ride. But yeah, we've got Doddy, a lifelong friend of mine. Used to go to school with him.
And beers.
I'd had many a crazy night out where I had no idea how I made it back. Doddy, incidentally, was the first person to witness my dad hearing me swear for the first time. I was getting carried home for my 18th birthday party after having a few drinks. My dad was over one arm, Doddy was on the other arm. They were both carrying me home, and for just absolutely no reason whatsoever, I just declared to the world as loud as I could, "Fucking twat." Doddy was there.
Yeah.
To which my dad replied to Doddy, "I didn't know he swore."
Yeah, it was a fair walk as well.
It was, from sort of, well, I'm not going to go into
it was a good 2-odd mile.
2 miles, easy. But yeah, Doddy has gone down the route of, and actually he used to do this in his younger days as well, of role-playing games, board games, all that kind of stuff that I've always been interested in, but never really got a proper foot in, other than, of course, things like Monopoly. More recently, I played Ticket to Ride and thought I was well good. And Claire used to what's it called? Settlers of Catan. Doddy introduced me.
One of my favourite games, Settlers of Catan.
But Doddy introduced me to loads of other, like, different games. Like, I remember once we played a Star Trek game. It was insane. And we'll get to it later. But that fucking that jelly bean game or gingerbread game was.
I found it. It's on my Instagram feed. It's on Doddy Master's feed, not Summon Games. I was like, well, why have I put it here? And I was like, oh, because when we played it, I didn't have Summon Games running alongside it because I didn't know where Summon Game was going at the point.
Well, Summon Games, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about this. Now, Summon Games is your most recent project, right, that you're involved with as we speak. So give us a bit of background. What is it? When did it start? How does it work? What's the plan?
The original plan for Summon Games was when I fell ill eight odd so years ago. The plan was to go through crowdfunding to get a FLG, or friendly local gaming store, and open up so people could come in, play games, buy games, and that was the original plan with Summon Games, and it didn't happen. It was the first time doing a crowdfunder. There was a lot of questions as to my experience, and I delivered. I've got sales and whatnot. I could sell ice to an Eskimo. But it just didn't take off, so I took a back seat on it for a while, and then when was it? I was cheeky about a year ago. Spoke to a company called Flying Horse Duck and said, if you wish to have some of your products reviewed, I'm more than willing to help you out. And they said, sure. They sent me a life counter and a D60.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so you've come familiar with the dice played D&D, or a 60-sided dice.
I can say for people listening, you don't have a fucking clue what's going on right now. That is a dice.
60-sided dice?
Yeah.
How on earth does that exist?
Can you also, I mean, the equivalent of can you use it in a sentence if we were playing Scrabble right now? Can you give us a real world of example of when you would need 60 variables?
60 variables. I give them out over the review and the video. There's various magical items in D&D, and one I'm still creating to try and keep it balanced, but also have it as a chaotic weapon. And it is referred to as a wand of wonder, where it can do pretty much anything, and you have no control over it. So it'll either affect the person you're pointing at or you.
All right, and from
it's the best way of doing it. So it could cast. I first introduced this in a second edition game that I played, and someone cast it on me because I gave them my stuff because I was suffering from lycanthropy, and they cast. The idea was to cast reduce on me. However, it backfired and cast enlarge when I was in werewolf form. So yeah, I became a giant werewolf trying to kill people.
That's fantastic. A fact that people might not know about Dan, if you've come from the Nerd OD podcast, is Dan is our resident mathematician.
I was wondering where you were going with that, and then that went to a place I was not expecting, nor is accurate. But carry on.
So, I mean, I'm guessing that people are going to be listening to this, being like, "Why have a 60-sided dice? Why not just have, 3 20-sided dice?" And
you do have. Well, no, because then you're only going from 3 up to 60, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, and also, I'm guessing it would be less likely to roll a lower or a higher number if you've got 3 dice. Whereas with a 60-sided dice, the chances and the randomness is completely equal. It's 1 in 60.
Yeah, I've just Googled it, and it's an absolute monstrosity. It's if it was anything more than 60, it would just be a ball.
Yeah, it's the size of it's a bit bigger than a golf ball.
Yeah, and I get that when you roll a dice, it's very obvious what number is on the top. Yeah, yes. I feel that it's got to be pretty difficult to be like, oh, that stopped on the 48.
No, it's pretty clear. It still remains clear.
Okay.
Also,
I suppose it was big, but go on.
Do you do anything with like the weighting of it? Because I know with normal dice, there's rules to do with weights, right? And how a dice is weighted. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like it's not it's not as easy as to just be like, I'm just going to make a 60-sided shape and label the edges.
Oh, that one's. They did explain the process, but it's made out of it's metal.
Oh,
So
wow.
That's in the video where I'm reviewing it and holding it. I'm just like, and you hear me laughing, and my voice is shaking because I don't want to drop it because my table's glass.
Brilliant.
So
just going back to the initial idea that you had, because I remember working with you a bit on the just chatting to you about the idea when you were looking at getting retail locations and stuff. And I think, it's probably a blessing in disguise that you didn't end up getting that retail location in the end, considering what's happened. In case you haven't noticed, in the last 4 years, we had a pandemic hit us in March. So
in the last 4 years, it has felt like 4 years.
Giving updates as to what's changed, and one of them is the fact that we're all locked in our little houses. Quick question that I had for you and for Dan, actually, because I remember Dan, we've talked before in the past about retail locations and stuff, specifically with in the same kind of breadth of having a location to go and game and to be a sort of geek shop whilst at the same time having a space to podcast and stuff. Obviously, that would be almost impossible to set up around this time. What do you think the progression of that is? The sort of the online equivalent of, okay, I can't get a retail space because either money or opportunity. What's the next step? What does it look like now?
Everything's online. There's stores. When you said like I'm probably in a good position where I didn't get the shop. Actually, the board game sales are through the roof. I'm looking through Facebook, and there's companies, just to name one of them, Leodis Games, and the gent's doing pretty damn fine.
Well, that's
he's done. Yeah. He has a physical shop, and he sells stuff online. And every day he does a stock viewing. So he walks around his stock room and on the shop floor and says, "This is what's new. This is what I've got," and he keeps people informed as to that I'm still open. There's still stock available. And talking to the board game community, board games haven't stopped being sold. They've become more of a huge thing.
And this is kind of why I wanted to bring this up, because I think the more that we're getting pushed together in houses of being forced to spend, more time with our friends and family in enclosed spaces, the board game market would probably shoot up. But I guess what I'm curious about is what does that look like? I know, the answer to everything at the moment is Facebook pages, is having a Facebook page for your pet shop, for your photography business. I'm just talking from stuff that I know about. But is that the progression of having like, a retail space like not like Forbidden Planet? You have like a Facebook space where you can organize events and stuff as well as sell.
Yeah, that's the idea. People are just using any social media as a launching platform, saying we're having this event. I was involved in. Well, I was there for the UK Games Exposition, the virtual event for the whole weekend, because I booked it off and I couldn't cancel it. So I sat on my PC and I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first time they've done it online, and I joined in through Discord. I played a role-playing game, which was amazing. I can't remember its name. I'll find it on my phone and let you know. But they were also linked to a website called Tabletopia, where you can actually play board games.
Yeah, I mean, that's the trick, isn't it? Is online. Recently, especially since lockdown, I've joined an app where people just go and essentially FaceTime in a group and chat and talk and stuff. And in that space, I've managed to play some games board games, card games that I haven't had time to play with my, like real life friends that I'd normally meet up with. Like, for example, the Obama Llama game.
Yeah.
That over text, and then I caught up with Claire and her sister Jen, and they were playing. I know we talked about it at the start of the episode, but you could Settlers. There's a board game equivalent of Settlers that you can play online for free on the Haribo web. I think Haribo
Hasbro, yeah, Hasbro.
Hasbro web. I think it's Hasbro.
It is Hasbro. Speaking of Hasbro, right, there was an old game, Hero Quest.
Oh yes,
I remember.
Yeah, they've just launched the brand new Hero Quest.
Wasn't Hero Quest on the Amstrad? Sure.
Yeah.
It was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
That roleplay game I was playing was Inner Demons.
Right.
That was brilliant.
But that's the way forward, then, right?
It is, and put me a stickler, but it isn't. I prefer people to be around a table, especially with some of the games. There's games where it's, as I was discussing before, there's games with betrayal elements to it, and you need to look at someone's face and see if they're lying or not.
Yeah, like poker, but more geeky and with dice, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it's worse than poker because you actually don't sit there being moody with your glasses on. You actually get in each other's face pretty much, and you're just like, no, it's you. You built that barricade there for no reason, and you could have shot that zombie right over there. Why? Why didn't you help me? And it was like,
What's interesting talking about that is so I don't know whether I told you that a couple of years ago I played a game with some friends that when I worked at Apple, they brought this game around to my house, and it was to do with ghosts. And either we were ghosts and we were haunting the place, or the board was haunted. But the aim of the game wasn't to beat each other; it was to beat the game as a collective. So you were playing against the game, and the game was playing against you. And that isn't that kind of the same thing with that Star Trek game that we played as well, in the sense that we weren't trying to battle each other.
That's the same as Dungeons and Dragons, really. Like if you're taking it right the way back to an original game like that, you're all teaming together. The only person you're up against is the dungeon master, and I don't. Maybe it's just me. I don't consider the dungeon master as a character. He is everyone. He is just facilitating the game, right?
Yeah. But he does have his own intentions, though, right? I mean, I think Doddy's been kind to us over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, fair enough.
I am going to change my dice.
No, but the reason why I brought that up, Dan, is because like if people are listening and their background to board games is like Monopoly, Snakes and Ladders and stuff, the whole idea of you being against the board game and not being against the players you're playing with, I think is potentially a new concept. And I'm wondering how many other board games, like Doddy, I know that you've got a stack of board games at home. What do you reckon the split is of games where you compete with each other versus games where you compete with the game?
More competing than cooperative.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that not just because of what your preference is, though, when you're buying games?
I go by what the game sounds like and covers, to be honest.
I would expect there to be more standard, traditional, you're up against other players.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's games where take Twilight Imperium, the new 4th edition.
Yeah.
Don't go out and buy it because it's a very expensive game unless you get someone else and play their copy, because you're going to waste at least 10 hours playing it.
When you say very expensive,
120 quid.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's a 10-hour game for your very first playthrough.
Wow. Is that one that you have to like leave on the table overnight, like you used to put your Sega Master System on pause?
Yeah, you could do. Yeah, it's you you can follow the rule book, and it gives you how to set the tiles out of the space line. And the idea is the galaxy's leaders that were on a planet called Mechatol Rex have gone, and it's basically get to Mechatol Rex and start getting the new order in place. There's trading in it, there's research, there's exploitation, there's alliances. There's how many races? I think there's about 15 races in the core set.
So it's not a game that you bring someone new into the world of board games to straight away, I'm guessing.
Free tonight. Yeah. I should have a couple hours. No.
You need 10.
You need 10, sorry.
Let me go back to the Monopoly point, right? If you're I used to love Monopoly, but it became a board game of arguments.
Yeah.
So I don't see the point in that anymore. If you're worried about stepping into the board game world, I would recommend you go for Settlers of Catan.
Good shout.
Or Machikoro. Or Takenoko. Those three games will ease you into the world of board gaming.
So why not? Because pretty much every comic book shop I go into lately is highlighting 2 board games right now. The different themes of Monopoly are all over the show, and Ticket to Ride.
Ticket to Ride.
I'd agree in that seems to be, there are certain breakthrough board games, and that seems to be one of them. Seems to be one that everyone's either got or has played.
Ticket to Ride is a crazy game of. It's not a push your luck sort of game. It's you've got to take a chance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a bit of gambling. There's a bit of as well as like attempting to try and fuck over the other players by being a dick sometimes.
You've got to get that railroad line in place on your side because it's going to screw over another player. They've got to go around to where you think they're going.
I mean, that's Monopoly. Monopoly is the same sort of thing, isn't it? If you've got a hotel on that, you've got a run of hotels, someone's going to land on it and they're going to have to pay a fine, and that's them screwed. It's all about being sort of vicious and not necessarily being nice to your other players. So that I'm not surprised that a game like Ticket to Ride has sort of crossed over, because it is a really simple concept.
It's simple. It's fun. It's you're limited to what you can do on a turn, but what you're doing on that turn is trying to set yourself up for multiple turns later on. And that's what I kind of like about it. There's no random element to it. You've just got to be focused, try and ignore what everyone else is doing. This is like some of my gameplay when I'm playing games. I have to ignore what, say, Sean is doing, for instance, even if he's destroying the physical board game and wrecking it with playing random cards. I have to ignore what he's doing, which could destroy everyone else's game, and focus on my gameplay.
Yeah,
because I have my own goal.
But there's always that balance, isn't there, of staying focused on what you're doing versus, hang on, he's trying to make a yellow road as well, and I need to go that way. So there is that element of being aware of what others are doing, which I do find fascinating. I'm thinking about the experience I've had with playing board games with Doddy and what his board game collection is versus the experience that I've had with playing board games with Dan and what Dan's collection of board games.
Well, yeah, but this is the thing. You've either got someone who's very much into board games, and if anyone does follow Summon Games, you'll see, half a dozen posts a day about a brand new board game, a Kickstarter board game, or something that Doddy's got that you may never have heard of. You go a lot more sort of deep and niche, I'd say, than your average game player, which is then me. I'm the sort of player that will I'll play board games when we've got people around, which obviously hasn't been for a while, or when we go to Centre Parks or something like that. We've got Cards Against Humanity, we've got Exploding Kittens, that sort of game.
Yeah, I was talking more about the actual gameplay element, the kind of, okay, when I'm sitting down to play a game with Doddy, I'm going to have to figure out how this works and put, a lot of effort into understanding and being tactical sometimes. But then when we come across some of the games that you've introduced me to, Dan, they're fantastic in the sense that it's challenging a completely different side of your brain, if you like. In the sense that,
maybe I definitely haven't got anything that takes too much thought. Like if you've got to sit there for half an hour before you play and have someone explain to you what is happening, how it works, that's too much for me.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like the fact that Cranium, for example, can be in the in the same category of what we're talking about that Doddy does. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, exactly. But that's just it. There's those very mainstream. I mean, it's the same with video games, isn't there? You've got your very mainstream stuff. You've got your Call of Duties, and that's your Monopolies.
Yeah, and then you got Peggle.
I wouldn't even say Peg. I would say Peggle is like Exploding Kittens. That is a crossover, very casual game. That's your Angry Birds of tabletop gaming.
Yeah.
But then
Exploding Kittens is brilliant though.
Oh, absolutely. It is absolutely brilliant, and I'm not surprised that and Cards Against Humanity have sort of forced quite a few imitators, let's say. There's a lot of games that use similar mechanics now. Like we got one recently. There's a company called Big Potato Games, and they do some really good games. Don't get me wrong. We've got two of theirs, they're very much a spin on Cards Against Humanity. There's one called Bucket of Doom, and you get given a card that's got an item on. And then or a bunch of cards that have got items on, and then the card that gets drawn for everyone is, here is a situation you're in. How do you use your items to get out of it and not die? And then the other people say, oh, that was my favourite, that one, that's the best one, they get voted on. So very, very similar. And then they have another one called Weird Things That Humans Search For, and it's basically just Google Feud. You basically, it gives you at the start of a Google search, and you have to guess what you think one of the top 10 most common auto-complete Google searches are.
Yeah.
So it's all very similar game mechanics, and I get what I mean. These are really easy to get in. You can sit down with someone for 5 minutes, if that, and say this is what you do. Whereas I've sat down with people to play games before, where it has taken probably a third of the playtime, just to explain how it all works.
Yeah, but the crossover there, Dan, is the fact that you mentioned Cards Against Humanity versus Exploding Kittens in the same breath, thinking that, okay, well, they're two popular games that you probably see in the same place. Display in Forbidden Planet. However,
not even in Forbidden Planet. This is the thing. You walk into W.A. Smith's or The Entertainer or Smith's Toys or something like that.
But the big difference,
and they sell them there. That's when a game has really sort of done the business.
But the big difference there between the two, and what merges, I think, Exploding Kittens more with the kind of games that I've seen that Doddy picks up and plays, is artwork, and this is another completely separate category of measurement, I guess. Like Cards Against Humanity, there is no artwork; it's just text on a card, right?
Yeah, that's part of the charm, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but with Exploding Kittens, one of the reasons why people are buying that so much isn't necessarily just because of the gameplay. It's because of the fact that he already had a backing from his artwork, from the oatmeal, and some of the character designs on there were fantastic. And this brings me on to when Doddy showed me Villainous, and how I instantly wanted to buy this game and play this game, not because of the fact that it sounded interesting, but because he was showing me the graphical elements in there that just looked, stunning and amazing. And that's kind of one of the things that sold it to me. I still haven't bought it yet, I still haven't played it. I really do want to. The fact that it's got the Disney badge on there is definitely
it's brilliant. When that came out, when it was said there's Villainous, it's coming out, I was like, oh, it could be terrible, it could just be awful. And then I seen it being played, and I was like, I need this game. Like I have like that gut feeling where like, oh, I want this game, but this was more of I actually need this game in my collection because every villain plays completely different to each other, and it adds so much depth to the game. I think they're on the 3rd expansion, and I need to get them.
That's the thing, right? It's complicated as well, and it's expansive. There's more to it. Doddy, what's your favourite game?
Old school, the Gothic game.
What's that?
You enter Dracula's castle, and you've just got to kill each other by jumping into various rooms, collecting weapons, and there's a rule element in it called Power of Adjacency, where you can land next to someone, and then you get to take their turn.
Wait, what? What, you can choose what they do, you mean?
Yeah. You take their turn. It is very, very simple for the year it came out. I think it was in 92.
Really?
And it is a very basic board. If you do not have the defense card against a weapon, you're dead. However, Blackletter Games has bought the rights to it, and they are doing a new Kickstarter for it pretty soon. I have the prototype, so you guys are welcome to come around and join us in the video.
Size.
Awesome.
And they've done it justice. They've changed a lot of the elements to it. I don't want to spoil it, but it's just I'm so happy to be involved in it.
See, this is a route that a lot are going. I know you know we've talked about tabletop gaming shops, even things like Forbidden Planet, and we've got a fairly local one called Geek Retreat, and they are sort of places that people can gather and sit down and play these games with each other without having to get people around their houses. I don't know how that's working at the moment, but a lot of these games seem to be starting life on Kickstarter.
Huge amount, vast amount. I don't have enough money to invest in all of them.
No, fair enough. But you know, if anyone wants to send a review copy of a game, you're quite open to that, I'd imagine.
I've had a few. The Gothic game was one of them.
Wow.
That's bad. Rurunjold. That was a Viking game that arrived. Sadly, I didn't get to keep that copy. I had to send it back. But the miniatures were fantastic in it. There's Beneath, where you play as dwarves descending into a mine, hacking down walls, finding treasure, scrolls of who is the next to be in line. The idea was you get so many scrolls and then you win the game as you're the next leader. And there's monsters in there as well, which I found on my game playthrough and got killed.
Awesome.
Yes, it was great.
Dan,
yeah, go ahead.
what's your favourite board game? That might be as easy a question for someone not as much of a board game connoisseur that Doddy is. I'd throw it out there.
I don't know. I know what I enjoy playing whenever we have people around. And again, this is if people are listening to this who are like tuning in because they're like, oh, a nice in-depth talk about tabletop gaming. I am the person on this podcast who's really gonna just throw a spanner in the works with everything and just talk about like, oh yeah, I was playing Cards Against Humanity and Exploding Kittens and nothing too in depth, unfortunately. I really enjoyed playing the Taskmaster board game recently. That's absolutely fantastic.
I mean, you can say Taskmaster board game. That's fine. I think it's like when someone asks you for your favourite film, in the sense that you'll probably come out with something, but that film that you say is probably going to be different next year or even next month. I played incidentally.
Mine's the Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing.
That's your favourite game, is it, or the film?
That's my favourite film. Incidentally, I've got two games. There is.
Yeah.
I've got two. Who Goes There, which is based on the book, and then I'm backing The Thing, the board game, which is doing really well on Kickstarter. They've just unlocked an expansion on Kickstarter for it, which is the Norwegian Outpost, Which
See, this is the only thing. I'm seeing more and more that a lot of the stuff on Kickstarter is licensed IPs. So it's like, okay, you mentioned before Exploding Kittens and how that was a Kickstarter, a ridiculously successful Kickstarter. Like, wasn't it the highest grossing card game of all time still, because it had the starting point of it being from the oatmeal.
Yeah.
But it's kind of amazing that, you know, it probably got all this support because of where it was from, because of the artwork, but the gameplay of it is so. I mean, I was going to say unique, but I suppose it's just a spin on Uno. But it's brilliant. It's such a well designed, well weighted game that it almost doesn't need the sort of the oatmeal starting point. It's just it's fab. But I see that my visibility on board games does come a lot from your Facebook page and your Twitter and your Instagram posting, this is a new game that's coming out. But I do see an awful lot of, you know, here's an Alien game, here's a Thing game.
Yeah, I do get carried away.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, I mean in the fact that they're not necessarily. They're trying to sell it on the fact that, hey, look, everyone, this is a game based on something you love.
Yes.
Not like, here is our game, look how good it is, look how well it plays. And I'm sure, you know, it comes down into that. But once they've sold it, they don't care. It's about, you know, that movie you really liked. I mean, I nearly took a plunge on the Scott Pilgrim miniatures game, which just looked amazing, but 90% of what made me want to buy that was because the miniatures looked so phenomenal. But it was something ridiculous, like about £100 to buy the set because of the figurines.
Yeah, they do add a lot to it. Yeah. It was like the Batman one when that came out. If you wanted everything included in the Batman Kickstarter game, you were looking at over 500 quid.
Yeah, do you want them painted? Do you not? You know, it's I'm sure it can get expensive. But the thing is, those miniatures, fair enough, they're little collectible figures, but they can't really add that much to the game. They could be the best looking figurines you've ever seen, but if the gameplay's not there, what's the point in it? But I feel that a lot of stuff is relying on that. But I suppose that's why we live in a world where, you know, the top 10 highest grossing films, 8 out of 10 were sequels or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there was a reason why I asked for everybody's favourite game.
Okay.
Because we know yours.
Why it was suggested that we do a board game podcast on the Steve Show is because of that interaction that I had only once with a board game called Candyman.
Run, Feel, Life, Candyman or something, isn't it?
Doddy?
Full title for you.
Is that it?
It is. Yeah, Run for Your Life, Candyman.
There you go. Even I remember that.
Run for Your Life, Candyman.
Yeah.
The reason why Dan remembers it, by the way, is because for a while I was going to every single comic book shop asking if they had it, and the answer, of course, was always no, because they stopped producing it fucking years ago, and Doddy failed to tell me that. Yeah.
I didn't realise until I got in touch. I think the company's Dagger and Smirk or something like that. What they're gonna release is a limited edition, brand new board game of that. Because
there you go.
In America, it is massive. Even at events, they'll walk in and they'll say, I think the shout is 6 gingerbread men enter, 1 will leave.
I mean, that was the thing, and that was the game mechanic that I loved about it so much that I didn't realise could be actually a thing. You know, Dan, you know when you get board games sometimes and you have little bits of paper inside and you think, I'm just going to use a normal pen and paper. Don't want the real thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you kind of have to with this game because on these pieces of paper are little gingerbread men with little squares on their appendages, and if you the idea of the game is to get from the start of the board to the end of the board without getting killed, and of course attacking
send you the image
as well as getting attacked by the board, right? And you can pick up different weapons. And I was playing along, and I was like, right, okay. So I've got this weapon, I've got this sword. So I'm going to roll to try and take a shot at Doddy. Okay, so Doddy, I'm gonna try and hit you with my sword, and in D&D it would be like, oh, you did 6 points of damage or whatever. No, with this you take squares off, and if you take the whole, so like the arm has 6 squares, for example, and if you do 6 squares of damage to the arm, then you have every right to go over to rip that arm off that player and to keep that physical arm as a trophy. And that's what I loved about the game, is the fact that you've got piled up gingerbread bits in front of you as trophies, because you've done that damage. It was absolutely fantastic. And
the very first turn, you played a card, and I have it because I posted it on Instagram, and I've copied it just for this. It was a card called Airheads, and on the very first turn of me moving first, because you all made me, you played a card called Airheads, which is replace a normal attack with this card. Tear off their head. No save, no nothing. Rip off the head.
This is a great pull for the first card. It was absolutely brilliant. So I had Doddy's head just for the rest of the game. And of course, you continue on because gingerbread men can continue on with no heads because they're gingerbread. Honestly. Because you just picture in your head, don't you, these little characters running around the board with no arms and legs and stuff. It's great. Loved it. A lot of fun.
It sounds like it. And the thing is, you've gone on about this game the point of this is multiple podcasts.
Yeah.
Sean has mentioned this game. Whenever we start talking about tabletop games, it always comes back to this. And for years, you had no idea what it was called. And then eventually, I think we were in Travelling Man in Manchester, and the guy, they weren't that busy, so the guy went on a computer and started looking, and he was like, right, I think it might be this, and showed you it, and you were like, yes, that is the one. We haven't got it, we can't order it either. Oh, great, thanks. But ever since then, now you know what it is, you want it, yet can't have it.
I'll keep my eye out.
I would love to play it again. I'd love to.
Okay.
We've talked about our favourite games. What is our least favourite game?
Well, mine is just anything that takes half an hour to explain.
So any of Doddy's games is what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? I do know what my favourite game is, because I'm just about to tell a little mini story, and it involves playing Sushi Go.
That fucking game, I hate it.
Why?
I don't understand it.
Great, it's so much fun. It's so
genuine rage,
so simple and works really well.
Genuine rage. I just love
absolutely.
it. Sushi Go.
Have you ever played that, Doddy?
Oh, I played it once a while back. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, I really like it. But basically, I found that game because I think it must have been, we didn't count it as a date in the end, but what should be technically my second date with Shell. She used to occasionally go to this board game club in an upstairs of a pub in Liverpool, and I went there and met her, and played some games with some guys. There was a guy who had a monocle and a waistcoat. He was very much into it. That was quite an experience. But first game we played, it was just like, well, let's just get into this easily. Let's start by playing Sushi Go. We played it. I was like, this is great. I love this. But then the next game, this guy turned up, and he just bought. I have no idea what the game was called. I wish I knew, but he just bought this game. And he wanted it for ages. It cost him like 60, 70 quid, something like that. And he was like, come on, I really want to play this. Let's play this. Come on. And we sat down and played it. And he spent half an hour explaining how it worked. And by about 15 minutes, the amount of times after that I must have just started repeating. Well, let's just play. We'll learn it as we go. Go on, let's just start playing. Go on, it's fine. We'll pick it up as we go along.
Yeah.
But he would carry on. So eventually we start playing, and he's really getting into it. And I'm sort of, and you know what you said before, Dan is our mathematician, which isn't right. But this game was all about getting points. It was about building up your village and doing certain things that would, by the end of the game, you would count up what you've got and you would get all your points. So I started seeing a few little ways of. Sorry, what was that? Was
this Catan?
No, definitely wasn't.
Oh, no.
It was one I've never heard of nor seen again. But it was. I started seeing ways that I thought, you know what, that's quite a good way of getting points, and it might have hurt me in the short term, but by the end of it, I was cleaning up. And it got to the end, and everyone was counting up their points, and he was sat there, and he's like, oh yeah, I got 74, and I looked at mine and go, 78, and he was absolutely devastated that he lost this game that he just bought for £70. This person had come in and played for the first time, to the point where he left immediately after, and we looked out the window and saw him just stood there on the corner and looking absolutely devastated, carrying his board game.
Did have that
it was
sound clip where they say you're fine, but you're really not fine.
The point is, anything like that, okay, great, it was fun by the end of it, but that was just, you just got to get started and play it. Do not try and spend half an hour trying to explain how it works. Sorry, go.
Did he drop his monocle because he was so surprised?
He wasn't a monocle guy, unfortunately. I wish. No.
You were either playing Agricola or Caverna.
Both those words ring some sort of bell, but I'm pretty sure it I don't know. It probably isn't that, but I don't know.
Dan, is that your least favourite game?
No, because I won it. It's just anything that is like that. Anything where it just takes that long. It depends. If you are really hardcore, I totally understand. You don't mind spending that time the first time to work out how it all works.
I thought the Star Trek game was pretty involved, but
the what game?
The Star Trek game that Doddy had me play. But it was one of those things where, again, you learn by doing, you learn by playing. And I'm sure you'll agree that there are a lot of games like that where you can over-explain them. It is better to just be like,
absolutely.
Let's just play around.
There was a gent on the Games Expo, and he's been a games tester and player and demonstrator for years, and he just turned around and said the best way of doing it is set up the board, have everyone sit down and go, right, you try and do this, what do you want to do? And you go, all right, I'm going to go, I need some metal, so I want to go get some metal. And then he'll take you through it, you do this, blah, blah. And by the third round, everyone should pretty much have an idea of what's going on. It's when they try and do something more complicated.
Because here's the thing, though, right? I remember when we went to Manchester, that Game Expo a couple of years ago, Doddy. Actually, wasn't it last year?
Who knows?
Yeah.
If you can pin down a year after this year.
But it was when
Play Expo.
Yeah, it was when I met Tragard from Nightmare. Fantastic. And we sat down because that guy asked us to come and try his game out, and you ended up buying it.
Tent Workers Assassins.
Yeah, that was fantastic. But what I loved about his demo was the fact that he sat us down. He gave us a little intro of like setting the scene. He wasn't talking about the mechanics of the game. He was like, you're going to play this, and this is the world that you live in, and you're going to do this and this. Like, he was setting scene. He wasn't talking about game mechanics. And then he just had us start playing, and you remember straight away we were just into it. And I can compare that to gaming and other formats. Like, could you imagine, like, when you first sat down with your first Nintendo, for example, and someone sitting down and being like, right, you're going to play a character called Mario. He can jump, he can walk left and right, he can eat mushrooms. Some mushrooms are good, but some mushrooms are bad. Now, you can jump on these things, but not these other. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's the sort of stuff you just got to learn as you go along. I mean, video games have tutorial levels.
Yeah.
So any game that can do something like that, where it's, all right, we play one round and that will teach you what you need to know. Something like that, I would say, is the way forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, we played. You've got Crabs, is it called? It's another oatmeal game. We played that recently, and we sat down. We were about to read the instructions, sort of unfolded it, and it said, "Read this or watch this video." We're like, "Oh, okay." So you scan the QR code, and it took you to a YouTube video, which was basically an animated, 3-minute animation of this is how you play the game. And we just sat there, watched the video, and it was done. It was like, right, okay, that all makes sense.
They're the better ones.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way to do it.
That's the crossover of old fashioned, board game sort of layout versus the world card layout that we're living in, that we had versus the modern day internet. Everything has a QR code kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I think that's a good way forward, though. The amount of games that are now doing a sort of a cross-platform. You've got your board game, but then you get out your iPad and load it up, and it would play in conjunction with that. There's one that Reg always goes on about, Mansions of Madness, I think, is it called? Does that ring a bell, Dottie?
Yep.
Which
XCOM did it as well.
Right, there you go. Yeah, and that's great. That sort of stuff is that sounds really intriguing, and it's very accessible then.
Yeah.
Plus, you've got something that is just.
Oh no!
Is it not?
XCOM is a stressful game.
Okay.
You 4 players. You take different roles. As soon as you press play, it's when it's the app. When you're using the app lasts a couple of minutes, and in that time, it's carnage because it changes all the time. So it'll say, right, researcher, assign a research card to position number 2. You've got 3 of them, and you're like, oh, number 2. Oh, right, okay. And then you've got to panic, put it in number 2, and you're like, okay. And then it'll go, right, person in charge of money. Are you going to take any money out the bank? And they have to go, right, how much budget do I need? And they've got to pre-budget and work out how many soldiers are going to be put on the field, how many satellites. And in that 3-4 minutes of that app going, it's stressful. Then it stops. You get to do what your turn involves, and then the app will tell. At the end of it, you go to the app and going, right, this is what's left on the board. This how many UFOs there are. Researchers hit this point. Start, and then it happens. It calculates and starts all over again, and it's completely random the next time round.
Right. Is this not simply then an example of a game that's done it very badly?
No.
No? Okay.
This is how XCOM is. It is pure carnage, and it does it so well. You've just got to have someone in charge shouting at you to do stuff.
Jesus.
It's brilliant.
Okay.
So, Doddy,
Yes.
what's your least favourite game?
Oh. I don't think I've come across one that is my least favourite.
I'll let you have a think while I talk about what my least favourite game is.
I thought it was a bit of a loaded question.
Well, no, we've had a favourite game. And a least favourite.
No, but more that I'm asking this because I have one that I want to talk about.
Yeah, it's always good to have an answer to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sound like a dope when people say, well, what's yours then? Yeah, mine is. See, this is the thing. It's my most favourite game in the sense that I love having it on my bookshelf because it looks amazing. But the gameplay is terrible. And actually, Dan, I think you bought it for me.
Okay.
Jumanji.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Do you know the board game version of Jumanji is actually terrible.
Nothing but bad things.
Oh, so it could be so good.
It's an in-joke. Maybe it's like, look, if you're going to play this game, you're going to feel terrible.
Yeah. It's just, it's not good. It's exactly what you say. It's a nice thing to have on your shelf.
Yeah.
Because the box looks like Jumanji.
Yeah.
It's not a nice fold-out thing, unfortunately. It is very cardboardy, but it's just, it's just the gameplay of it is terrible.
Oh, you get
taking no thought.
by bees. Keep rolling until you roll a green.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to roll a green, otherwise you get attacked by bees. Okay? So then you have just 30 seconds of just roll.
That's it. Oh no, the rhino's got you.
Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah. No, I'll absolutely. I'm well with you on that.
I remember looking at the instructions for it and being like, "Are we playing this right? Is this actually it?"
Mm-hmm.
Did you buy that for me?
Yes. No, but I'm fine with that. I got given it for Christmas as well. But fortunately, we played the one we gave you before I played mine. So now, we sort of experienced it and how bad it is that I never have to play mine. But it's cool to have.
I was going to say it's one of those things that it's prominent on my display of stuff.
Do you know, I was having a bit of a clear out a while back, and I had started having a look through some of my old board games, and I found I've got Homer Simpson Operation. I was like, brilliant, we were playing that. I'm digging that out, put some batteries in that. It's great. And I found Star Trek The Next Generation Monopoly. Okay, but this is from about 20 years ago, at least. It was bought in America, and I remember buying it now. And
a card that just says "Shut up, Wesley."
There isn't, as far as I remember. But I will have a look through and get back to you. But the thing is, I found it and I was like, okay, I don't like playing Monopoly anyway. I'm never going to play this. Maybe I should get rid of it. See if eBay wants it. And I opened it up and started having a look. And the figures are quite cool. You've got a little data and you've got a little Picard and everything. And I looked through the instructions. And the first page in the instructions says, you've purchased the Star Trek Next Generation Monopoly game, which represents the Alpha Quadrant. Also, there is a Deep Space Nine Monopoly, there is a Voyager Monopoly, and an Original Series Monopoly, and each one represents a different quadrant. So, if you buy all four of them, you can put them together and make the entire galaxy and have this ridiculously huge quadruple Monopoly game. I didn't read any more into it. I just saw that and thought, Monopoly's got this tag that it is one of the most boring and long-winded games you'll ever play.
Imagine playing it times.
4 times. I don't care if you absolutely love Star Trek more than anything in the world. I watched Picard actually for the first time today, incidentally, and it's fab.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So good. But anyway, carry on. There's no way anyone ever played 4-way Monopoly, quadruple Monopoly. That is just.
I've seen it on. Shout out to Game Grumps, but I've watched them play it on Switch, and it looks way more entertaining playing it on Switch. From a nostalgic point of view, I was like,
Monopoly, just generally.
Yeah, I was from a nostalgic point of view, it was like not quadruple Monopoly. I was like, I quite fancy to play Monopoly, and then I had to shake it off my head and go, no,
even Monopoly, even whoever it is, Parker Brothers or whatever, Hasbro, I don't know, even they know Monopoly is boring because the amount of the way they try and flog it by either branding it like all these different things, or then having all these spin-offs.
Cheating Monopoly.
Cheating Monopoly, and here's one where you get you have bank cards instead of money. Here's one where where there's no spinner, and you just it takes half the time that it would normally take. Here's Kid Monopoly.
I'm saying this. I've got 3 different Monopolies downstairs, all of which I really like. I've got the Scott Pilgrim Monopoly. No, sorry, no. It's Pilgrim.
I didn't think that. I was going to say I would have that. Jane Silent Bob Monopoly. Yeah, I know you've got that one.
And Lilo and Stitch Monopoly.
Okay. See, I feel like they're almost cool things to have if you're a fan of that thing, but nothing more.
Again, it's collectible. It's like the Jumanji thing all over again. It's just having display. And it's interesting to say that because I've got all these board games on display that I'll never play because I just like the look of them. And meanwhile, we've got Doddy, who's got all these beautiful looking games on display, all of which he will play because he likes them.
There's before everything's happened, there was about 3 board games that hadn't come to the table yet. There's a lot more now because Kickstarter games are arriving. But yeah,
have you invested in quite a few Kickstarter games?
I have indeed.
And how many times have you been let down, shall we say? And I don't mean by, this wasn't very good, but by the company promising something that they had no way of delivering.
2 games haven't even gone into production. We don't know where they are. Okay. Everyone's kicking off. So 2 have let me down. One was amazing in its simplicity. It was you're building an outpost on a 5x5 grid, and the more buildings you placed as you're colonizing the planet, the more points you got. But then your opponents could play a tile, which is like an asteroid hitting, which gives you minus.
Right.
But that one never happened. There was a horror version 1, which I think we're in 6 or 7 years of waiting for the guy. Some people have got the game, some people got half the game.
Right.
There's a game.
This I feel like this is a podcast to itself where Dan rants about how frustrating and annoying and how much he dislikes Kickstarter.
But this is like Kickstarter has improved. This is where it was back where people would just con you out of money and then just disappear off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
There's a game.
Go on.
My blood cup.
Your cup. I wasn't even going to bring it up. I love the concept of crowdfunding, and it absolutely enables so many different projects that would never have got off the ground. And I would not rule out using it myself one day if I came up with something that was worthwhile. It's the only way of doing things, but there's so much, I don't know, there's so much that over promises and completely under delivers, that I don't know how there's not more sort of governing of it.
Right then, let's cover one of them. Junk. Junk was a Kickstarter that I backed. It's a post-apocalyptic game where you're trying to keep your civilization alive, and the game is very basic. There's no characters on the cards as per se. It's just symbols.
Okay.
And I found out in a gameplay when you recruit, because I was running out of food. So if you keep recruiting, there's only so many people who can go farming for you. There's a limited amount of people in the actual deck. So the number of cards is very limited. If you hit an event which causes what is referred to as a chaos token, there's cards which just give it to people, everyone at once. So you're like, all right, and you can only have about 3 of them. So, and that event gets shuffled back into the deck.
So this isn't this is more a game that was just really badly weighted. Sounded like it was going to be great, but ended up being pretty poor for it.
The variation of cards, there's not many. The quickness of you could be knocked out instantly is phenomenal. It's just it goes against you. The rules were heavy, and not heavy in a way that the rulebook was heavy. There's so many rules. It didn't need to be this complicated.
Right.
And it cost a fair bit for a box that's the size of. Try to think of a comparison. I want to say Uncle Ben's rice.
Okay.
And that's it. That was the whole thing. And everyone messaged going, "Where's the rest of the stuff?" And it's like, that's it. And the tokens are the little circle, like tiddlywinks. They're the tokens for the game. And on some of them, if you're colorblind or you can't see certain colors, you're not going to tell the difference between any of the colors because they're that close.
Wow.
That is a game off Kickstarter, a game which recently came out this year. It was Space Marine Adventures, based on the Games Workshop 40k world.
Mm.
Oh, God, we played it and we did a review, and we were kind to it for 5 minutes, and then we just destroyed it. It was so bad. So the idea is you're progressively going through different acts to kill Necrons, which is awesome because each Space Marine's different. Each got different skills. The turn order is randomly determined by cards being flipped over. Necrons don't do anything. Once they spawn in, they just stand there. They don't shoot. They don't fight. They just spawn. That's it. That's all they did. They're just speed bumps, and it didn't deliver anything new. It was just like, oh, this is really boring. If you had a child and you wanted to get them into Games Workshop stuff, then yes, I'd say get this game so they can be Space Marines and run around and go, ooh. But no.
So this is stuff that is very much the flashy campaign that really missold the game. Yeah. See, I suppose that's the problem, isn't it? You're buying into something before you know exactly what the product's going to be. Whereas if a game gets released, you've got time for there to then be reviews and to see it, in shops and decide whether it's worth buying or not.
Well, most companies do playtest now, which I'm trying to be that cheeky guy of getting more games in.
Yeah. Don't ask, don't get.
That's the way forwards. If you can get someone playing your game on throw it on YouTube so everyone can see what it's like, then not only do us as playtesters get more viewers, but the company itself will have people turn around and go, hold on, I'm going to save that project. When it's live, I'm going to give them a donation.
I think we might be at time, guys.
Oh, no, let's keep talking.
Enjoying that as well. I mean, Dan, honestly, I know it's been a few years, but I might do one or two more of these,
I like the sound of that. I like it.
Let's see how the numbers go. Let's see.
Don't. If you look at the numbers. No, just do it because you enjoy it, Sean. Just, it's a nice little extra little podcast for us to have. We can we can alternate it with Nerdo D&D.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of other people lined up that I want to have a chat to anyway. But we'll see. This was good. I believe that we did, Doddy, once before try to make a Steve Show podcast about an actual game, a D&D game. The first time I played D&D, actually.
Yes.
Record it, but it just ended up terrible, so didn't use it.
All right, I'm working on a new campaign. There's people I haven't picked the players yet because I want to do it over Twitch live stream.
Nice.
Get it going.
I mean, send out a link. We'll definitely re-Facebook it or hashtag it or whatever goes on nowadays. Dan's,
whatever the kids like, whatever.
Dan's the social guy. He's the one that does all the sharing and stuff. So
yeah, definitely.
It's not difficult. Anyone can do it.
Ask everyone to smash that subscribe button.
Yeah, smash that like button. 10,000 likes. It means 10,000 prayers.
Yeah.
For all the Fallen Kickstarter campaigns.
Yeah, 1 million likes and I'll take my pants off. Hi, bitch.
Okay.
Wait, before you finish. So, if you're going to go buy board games, go for quick games like Dungeon Mayhem. Got to get it.
Okay.
Catan, ease yourself into a game really quickly. Machikoro, competitive game of buying shops. Takenoko, where you get to play as a panda running around eating bamboo.
Fantastic.
Well,
Go for them. You can't go wrong. Dungeon Mayhem's only like 12 quid.
I want to play the panda game.
Dungeon Mayhem. Okay.
Thanks for joining us today, Doddy, and thanks for joining us, Dan.
You're welcome.
And here's to Here's to many more episodes. Here's to episode 6 in 5 years.
Wait, no, this is only 4. Episode 5 still got to come.
Episode 6. Here's to episode 6.
Okay.
Yet,
You're
but
at least doing one more.
it very well may do.
And I try and sneak into more of them.
Yeah, there you go.
Good night, guys.
Bye.